So I am doing a live Q&A at a reasonable hour. So this is going to blow the fuck up. You're going to see an enormous amount of people say, what do you think about my cycle? And then they're going to list a bunch of dumb shit. And then I'm going to try not to get frustrated with how dumb their cycle is. Oh, fun. And then Josh is going to come on and say something actually interesting. And there might be other people who say interesting things, but let's not hold our breath. It's probably just going to be endless streams of bad questions about steroids, indicating that they were bad students and didn't pay attention to all the other content. So if you want to be really disappointed, watch the whole thing so you can see how many times. Let's have like a ticker going. How many times are people going to refer to Masteron as an AI? This will be the Masteron ticker. And this is going to be a number of times that people want to know if GH is going to have certain side effects, not the IGF-1 that it produces. And then this one's going to be the number of times that people want to whine about daily injections. So it's almost like it could be a drinking game. It's like take a shot every time someone asks about how they can get around doing daily injections. So we got one right here. Although this one's he's kicking us off. So everyone does a shot because someone asked about Masteron being an AI. All right. I don't know what NAD is, nicotinamide, a blah, blah, blah. Scientific Snitch and I discussed this in the last episode where she was making fun of people who use NAD+. It's just, in general, the idea that you're going to biohack successfully is just nil. Found 30 gauge 1-inch needles on Amazon. What? Oh my God, you are my hero. Send me the fucking link, dude. I need to get that shit. I want 1 inch. I've only been having 1/2 inches. Hi, Todd. I taking rest days necessary. Can a chest, back, arms, and shoulders, legs repeat work good? I have a problem with recovery after legs, but I would give this a try. In my experience, it works great in contest prep, but I've never tried in the off season. Also, what's your opinion about Accutane isotret? Apparently, Accutane causes permanent cessation of acne, and it's the bee's knees. But I know it's very hard to find a doctor who's authorized to prescribe it. It's the hardest thing to get a script for in the world, except for like now opiates. The whole reason is because it's supposed to be toxic with liver. So I don't know whether or not you can mix it with liver. I don't know if you can mix it with anabolic steroids because they think anabolic steroids are liver toxic, which they're not unless they're orals. But don't have a link, but they're Lurlock by CareTech 100 piece 30 gauge. Well, are they really insulin syringe if it's Lurlock? Lurlock doesn't make insulin syringes. They make hypodermic syringes. Have you ever seen megadosing B5 for acne actually work? No, I haven't. Hey, hi, Doc. IM versus SQ for administration. So everyone do a shot. Someone asked about IM versus SubQ. Always IM. All right. I know that originally the game was at you do a shot if they ask about daily injections versus sporadic injections, but I consider it's still the same thing because people confabulate IM and SubQ with daily. They think all daily has to be SubQ and all sporadic or IM. They don't differentiate those two variables. And then they falsely attribute the benefits of daily injections to SubQ injections. So I consider it the same thing. So just because I can't keep a ticker tape going, we had one Masteron is an AI question already and one IM versus SubQ question already. So that's 2 shots for people who are just joining in. Well, I don't know if it's good or bad that people are afraid to ask any more questions. Someone say something. I don't have like a monologue prepared. All right, here you go. Why do I get more hand numbness from IM GH administration? Because it works better. I guess you want more of an explanation. All right, so you're going to get more IGF-1 conversion, and my suspicion is that it's the IGF-1 that causes the hand numbness. So an insulin syringe needle looks like this. It's orange, and it's shaped like an insulin syringe. This is an insulin syringe needle. If it isn't this, it's wrong. It's the only needles you should be using on your body. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Todd. This may be out of your field, but I want to ask, is there any medicine that increases sexual intercourse time? I did some research and found out that Daxpoxetine is commonly used. Thank you. I guess I've heard that estrogen increases staying power or whatever it is. I know that desepramine, which is a tricyclic antidepressant, will make it so that it's difficult to ejaculate. Also, if your DHT is lower, you'll have a less sensitive dick, so you're going to be less likely to ejaculate. I mean, in my opinion, if you just keep going after you come the first time, then it'll take you another half an hour or so before you come a second time. So just keep plodding away. Hi, from France, Dr. Todd. Do you need more rest time between sets, more than 90 seconds as you get older? I don't see what your age has to do with it. And overtraining isn't a myth. I think it depends on the body part. I mean, if you keep a logbook, you can very quickly determine what the optimal rest period is. If you rest 30 seconds and you get 10 reps on your second set, and then next week you rest 45 seconds and you got 12 reps on your second set, and the next week you rested 2 minutes and you got 14 reps on your second set, and the next week you rested 3 minutes and got 14 seconds on your second set, then it looks like the sweet spot is somewhere between 90 seconds and 120 seconds, and that anything more than 120 seconds is a waste. You said that you used 140 milligram of Tren a week for 10 years. I mean, I use like 20 milligrams of Tren a day. I don't know if I said it meant it for 10 years. I think I used Tren for 10 years. And in a certain window of time, I used 140 milligrams of Tren per week, which is 20 milligrams per day. I didn't quantify the amount that increased my metabolism, but I know that it did increase my metabolism, and it did also improve my insulin sensitivity. Why do you do so many sets per muscle group if you only need about 40? I don't do that many sets per muscle group. And I don't know, other than Paul Carter, I don't know who says this nonsense about 4 to 10 sets per muscle group per week is the maximum beneficial amount. I think that 4 sets per week is a good minimum amount. I mean, currently, let's go through the list. Back is the target focus right now. I break back up into 2 body parts, lats and the rest of the back. My lats, I do a total of 12 sets per week. I do 4 sets 3 times a week. With the upper back, I do 2 sets 3 times per week. For my chest, I do 2 sets 3 times a week. For middle delts, I do 3 sets 3 times a week. For rear delts, I do 3 sets 3 times a week. For hamstrings, I do 3 sets twice a week. For quads, I do 3 to 4 sets twice a week. I do 3 sets one day and 4 sets the other day. I do calves 3 sets twice a week. Abs, I do 2 sets 3 times a week. And biceps, I do 6 sets twice a week. And with triceps, I do 4 sets 3 times a week. So if you acknowledge, so it sounds like I'm doing every single thing within that parameters except for lats, which aren't growing. So one would assume I'm. All right, Daniel. When I am more CH, I get more hand numbness. IGF-1 conversation is also better on high calories versus on calorie deficit. Yeah, of course. You get more IGF-1 conversion on higher calories, possibly due to the increase in insulin. S.L. Hendricks. Why don't we see insulin resistance in children getting a full dose of 18 IU for short stature if HGH causes blood glucose to rise? I don't believe HGH does cause insulin resistance. I think that's a bodybuilder myth. I suspect it's because the insulin resistance impact is BS. It's not the GH that's causing insulin resistance. It's the carbs that people are eating their off season that causes the insulin resistance. On same IU on GH. Okay, whatever that's supposed to mean. Austin Areola. Austin Areola. Can you rate my physique for fun? Yeah, what picture am I using? Am I using this one? Because all I've got is a side chest. So based on this side chest, for amateur, I'd say this is like a 9 or a 10. For pro, I don't know what you're doing, if it's classic or not. For classic, I'd say it's up there, at least a 7 or an 8. All right, Andre, what is your split based on the fact that you train upper body 3 times a week and legs 2 times a week? All right, so I'm doing lats, upper back, and then triceps, middle delt, chest. Then the next day, I train biceps and then legs. And then the third day, I'm doing lats, upper back, triceps, middle delts, rear delts, upper chest, and then the day off. And then the next day is lats, upper back, middle delts, rear delts, chest, abs. And then the final day of the week is triceps, biceps, legs. I believe in the past you said you completed J3U. Yes, I have. Could you expand on if you found the value in it to be worthwhile? Any criticism? I think that J3U is the best thing you could ever do to. J3U is the best money you've ever spent, or I have ever spent. That J3U is worth more than any college course. J3U is more valuable than anything else there is in the world about bodybuilding or coaching. That every single person who's planning on using PEDs or ever stepping on stage should sign up for J3U. Use the code TOD5 if you want to save money on J3U. I have a hard time respecting people who don't know everything that came out of John Jewett or Mike Israel's mouth, which seems like a ridiculous expectation. But to me, I've so absorbed and compartmentalized and tried out all of the information that J3O has offered and Israel that I find it to be so incredibly ignorant of people not to listen to those two men that it's hard for me to see them as a fully formed human being. They seem more like some type of sheep farm animal creature. But like sheep actually taste good and pigs taste good. I don't know that if I chopped up these people and ate them, whether it would be worth a meal. So every single person should do J3U and everyone should listen to Israel. Now, where they come into conflict, I find that J3U's material is easier to follow for training. I think that Isratel's model of rapidly accelerating volume, then deloading, then restarting, then rapidly accelerating deload, then it's not really feasible for advanced lifters or competitive bodybuilders. J3U's model of much lower volume and just staying the course. Basically, with J3U, you hang out just over MEV, basically where Mike would predict MAV to be. You don't push the MRV envelope, which is what the app does. If you get the Renaissance Periodization app, it pushes you rapidly to MRV, and then you hate training, and then you're burnt out, and then you deload, and then you come back, and then you have your first week is just fucking around doing nothing because it's 3 reps in reserve. It's totally inefficient. With J3U's model is you do like 8 weeks of low volume training with 1 RIR, maybe 0 near the end of that block. Then you do a deload week that's really just 3 reps in reserve. It's not a big deload. And then you come right back at the 1 RIR. That's the only difference between the 2 modalities. Oh. Okay, we're caught up. It's difficult for me to figure out what I'm looking at sometimes. I apologize if this is a question you've already answered previously, but I couldn't find anything online. Why would insulin syringes be better than hypodermic needles? Because the hypodermic needles, it's very hard to measure the correct amount of drug you're trying to use. The hypodermic needles are either a half a cc or a whole cc. So you're either using 100 milligrams of testosterone or you're using 200 milligrams of testosterone. There's no room for nuance. With an insulin syringe, you can do 20 milligrams of test a day, 40 milligrams of test a day, 30 milligrams of test a day. You can fine tune it so that the dose is as accurate every time. Plus, it's smaller diameter, so the meniscus is going to be less of an amplitude issue. So since you measure from the bottom of the meniscus versus the top of meniscus, most people don't know that. So if you don't have a visible meniscus, there'd be less dosing error. You have the most underrated channel for bodybuilding on YouTube. Thank you for all the great. You're just saying that because I told you have a perfect body, dude. Let's be real. It's like imagine what he would have said. It's like, you're a 2, go kill yourself. Like then he would be like, I hate your channel sucks, you're not a real doctor. It's like Chris Lockhart is like, doctor, what is this picture? It is so cool. It's like an orc Siamese twin. Oh man, that's creepy. Anyway, doctor, I know you don't condone using gear if you're not competing. That's not entirely true, but it is best. But is a bit of test and GH with a bit of Mast okay after 50 years old? Again, with the age shit, I don't understand what your age has to do with it. Age doesn't have anything to do with it. Well, your blood work is what matters. The reason why people think that they get less healthy as they get older is because if you live a shit lifestyle for 30 years, your blood work's going to look worse than if you live a shit life for 10 years. The age doesn't really matter. So I think at 50 years old, it's reasonable to be on test and GH for HRT. And I really don't see the purpose of Mast because you're not competing in bodybuilding. I don't know why you would want to use Mast. All right. If you're doing low dose GH, 2 to 4 IU a day, doesn't matter if you use generic or pharma from a sides perspective. Well, the pharma is going to have more sides than generic because pharma is less pure. Yes, I said that correctly. You should go watch the video where I discuss the differences between the two and how shitty pharma is compared to what these influencers will tell you. They're just covering their ass. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. How often do you deload or totally off from heavy training? When you're burnt out, then you have to deload. Or if you get hurt, you have to deload. Or if you got sick, the week you come back from a cold, you should deload that week. Thanks. You're welcome. All right. No, to be honest, how you've explained taking tests for optimal E2 and running Mast and GH up has me looking my best. I don't see myself ever using anything else. Thank you so much for saying so. And you have a great physique, so the proof is in the pudding. Team FF Podcast, Felipe Faria. All right. Does daily Tadalafil works for blood pressure control and better pumps? I prefer sildenafil rather than Tadalafil. Basically, I prefer Viagra over Cialis because in my experience, the Cialis makes my nose stuffy and my lower back hurt. I know it doesn't make any sense. They're the same basic drug. They're phosphodiesterase inhibitors, and the only thing that's different is half-life. But in my experience, the Viagra half-life is not 4 hours. I don't really get it. But do I get better pumps? Yes. Blood pressure control, I'm not sure it directly has an effect on my blood pressure. I do take 40 milligrams of telmisartan, and I do take 100 milligrams of Viagra before I train, and my blood pressure is perfect. Rack pull. Do you have any clients that can't handle even 20 milligrams a day of tests? No. On the flip side, do you have any that need significantly more for TRT? I personally need way more than 20 milligrams for TRT. My estrogen is in the toilet, even if I'm on like 60, 70 milligrams a day. I think I was on 70 milligrams a day of test, and I had a 35 estradiol. So like for me personally, even just basic TRT, 70 milligrams a day wouldn't cut it. I actually have the opposite. The Viagra gives me a stuffy nose while the Tadalafil gives me no sides. I think it's dependent on the person. I think you're right. All right. Hey, Todd, can tamoxifen block progestogenic signaling at the breast region from Tren? I don't see how. I don't think that there are any competitive inhibitors of the progesterone receptor with tamoxifen. I know that tamoxifen itself doesn't do anything. It's metabolites of tamoxifen. There's both selective estrogen receptor modulator metabolites of tamoxifen and AI modulators. AI metabolites of tamoxifen. There may be progesterone receptor modulators that are metabolites of tamoxifen, but I don't know that there are. Do you need to constantly up the dose of anabolics over time to continue to grow? No, not necessarily, but that is a typical method. I think that the correct thing to do is you get up to the minimum dose you need to grow and stay there until you stop growing. Then you use more drugs to break through a plateau and start growing. What most guys do is they do something stupid, like they start with 500 test, 500 Primo. They crush their estrogen, and then after 4 to 6 weeks, they stop gaining anything because they started with such a huge amount of gear that it's just they run into side effects and have to come off of their cycle before they ever really gain any real muscle. Most people are too impatient. They don't understand growing muscle takes months. That it's not weeks, it's months. So 6 to 8 months, you might put on 2-3 pounds of muscle. Everything else is just water and fat. If blood glucose is above fasted range 2 hours post a meal, does this mean insulin is needed for that meal? Not really, because if you chase insulin resistance with insulin, you'll just get more insulin resistance. It just means you didn't go for a big walk after your meal. Yo, Todd, it is snowing in South Georgia. Hype. Why is it's so fucking cold up here? Like I walked outside and I got hit. I'm wearing sweatpants and it's so cold out. I felt like someone was hitting me in the shins with cold water, and I felt like my dick was cold. Like I don't ever remember having your dick get cold because you walked outside in the sweatpants before, and I had like a winter coat on. And I mean, I walked from the gym to my car. It wasn't like a long walk. It's like I think it's 2 degrees here before the wind chill. It's so cold the battery in my car wouldn't work. Like it took me like 15% of the battery to get to the gym and back when it should have taken like 4. And I was driving around with a 0% battery and it was driving fine. So it's like it's cold enough to make a Tesla malfunction. Eddie Nangia. Could you speak about how sodium D-aspartate works to boost testosterone? Is it something you would concurrently run with TRT to stop testicular action? Yeah, I mean, that's why I developed Thor's hammer, was so that my sodium D-aspartate would prevent people from getting testicular atrophy on cycle. It's better than HCG in this regard, that HCG is basically going to desensitize. HCG is going to make your body stop producing luteinizing hormone, whereas sodium D-aspartate will have your body make more luteinizing hormone, and it functions like luteinizing hormone on the testicular Leydig cells to produce testosterone. So it may not have as potent of an effect, but it's something you can use long term. Whereas HCG, you're going to end up shutting your pituitary's ability to make LH off through negative feedback. So you would definitely run it concurrently with TRT, and you would not need to run HCG. Not vegan, but can't afford meat daily. Is dairy and whole eggs okay? Hate fish. Yeah. If you want to eat, I mean, I don't understand. This to me is just I don't know where you're from, but here in America, eggs and dairy are more expensive than chicken and canned tuna. So I would always say white meat chicken is cheaper than eggs, especially since the eggs are going to have so much fat in it. I mean, like 12 eggs is only going to be like 36 plus 42 grams of protein. You're paying $12 for 42 grams of protein. Whereas for $12, you could get 3 pounds of chicken, which is going to be 300 grams of protein. So you're paying 7 times the price of chicken for the protein from eggs, assuming you throw the yolks out. And don't even get me started on dairy. All right. Andre, is 200 milligram increase every 3 to 4 months a good way to taper up the dose? I think that's kind of a silly way of doing it. I would probably just do 20 milligrams every 2 or 3 weeks, right? So what would that come out to be? So 3 to 4 months is 12 to 16 weeks. And that's 10 increments. 10 increments would be 1 increment every 1.2 to 1.6 weeks. Yeah, so if you did it my way, it'd be a slower ascent and it would be way less drastic. So 20 milligrams every 2 weeks. Mikey. Well, I don't know what we're laughing about, Mike, but I'm glad you're having a good time. Austin Aurelia. If you had to pick a favorite brand of gym equipment overall, what would it be? See, and that's the thing, is I'm not that guy. I like Reband knee sleeves. I use Gasp knee wraps. I guess I would go with Gym Reaper as a first line of defense because it's reliable and it's cheap. But then there's certain things where I don't like the Gym Reaper. Like I don't like the Gym Reaper elbow or knee sleeves. I think they're too thin. I don't like the Gym Reaper knee wraps. I think they're too thin. I like heavier duty shit. Gym Reaper doesn't make squat shoes. But like if you were like rather than Valero or Harpinger, if you wanted like the basic bitch complete line of product, I would say Gym Reaper's a better brand than Harpinger or Valero. Hey Doc, what's the name of that product you just held up? This is Thor's hammer. You can get it at valhallabs.com. I developed it in 2014. It's had many names since then. It was originally called Rise and Swell, and then it was Thor's hammer in 2015, and it's been Thor's hammer ever since. So valhallabs.com, my supplement company. I guess people don't know that I own a supplement company and design the products for it, which is my fault for not marketing correctly. What's your opinion on Lyle McDonald? I think Lyle has a lot of good ideas and he's a smart man. He's really toxic. Like he says some horrible, horrible shit. That Lyle is to me the most toxic person on the internet. I would say Lyle and Victor Black are like the extreme end of the spectrum, with like Paul Carter being still like cringe with his toxicity. I think I'm toxic. Like I don't like even watching me. I hate my personality when I do these because I get so irritated so quickly. I want to get as far away from the Lyle McDonald, Victor Black, and Paul Carter personality as possible. Like John Jewett says the same shit I do, but no one pushes back against him because he's so mild-mannered and so easy. Not that I want to lose my identity, but literally I just watched a John Jewett video on low or high testosterone. And he kind of got, he let his irritation show about how much shit, his exact words, because he never swears. He's like, we take so much shit from people telling us Masteron doesn't grow muscle, but we have 500 clients and they're growing just fine on Masteron. So it's like, me and him see exactly eye to eye on everything. In fact, we ran the same cycle to the almost the milligram, and we had the exact same estradiol after this at about 8 weeks. And we were like, okay, like it's like there's obviously true. Everything is correct. We run the exact same cycle. He, of course, grew way more muscle than I did because he is a better bodybuilder than me. All right. What's this? Oh, you asked about that. Okay. We'll grab it for sure. Okay. Thank you. Mikey, the cold comments were cracking me up. Then podcast with Niall Naga brought me here. You were one of the guests he's had yet. You were one of my guests he's had yet. I don't know what that sentence is supposed to say, but thank you. It's like Felipe. Dr. Todd, does being very active, 20,000 steps, replace the need for cardio for health and longevity? I would say it replaces the negative calories, and it also provides the metabolic insulin sensitivity, but I don't think it's going to help with the actual heart remodeling. I think you need some zone 2 cardio for proper heart health. But that could be leg press. Like if you do sets of 20 on the leg press, that could be enough cardio for your week. Spiral BJJ. I give Lyle a semi-pass because of his broad contributions early on and the legitimate bipolar disorder. See, okay, I don't give people a pass for having mental illnesses because what people consider a mental illness versus what they consider to be personality disorder. Okay, so does he have axis 1 bipolar disorder, or does he have a bipolar personality disorder, an axis 2 disorder? Like, how should I put this? So you could have a psychosis where you have a paranoid delusional schizophrenia, where you think you're better than everyone on the planet and they want to kill you because they think that you will rise to power so great that you will enslave them all. Or you could just have narcissistic personality disorder where you think you're better than everyone and they're beneath you and they want to hurt you because they're jealous. So the insurance company will pay for you to see a therapist if you're axis 1, and then you will get prescribed medication, which you can choose not to take. Or if you're axis 2, because it's non-treatable personality disorders, they won't bill they can bill the insurance, but the insurance won't reimburse. So rather than them diagnosing you correctly as axis 2 and you getting the treatment you need for personality disorders, they will put you on medication, which could be very harmful to you, just so that they can bill the insurance. So the whole field of psychiatry to me is corrupt to the point where I can't trust anyone's diagnosis unless I diagnose them myself. So I didn't diagnose him with bipolar disorder. So until I diagnose him with bipolar disorder, motherfucker's just held accountable for the shit that comes out of his mouth. I hope that made sense to people. For upper days, better to do just one chest exercise, or would 2 exercises be okay if recovery is fine? Press movement and fly movement for upper chest. I don't really understand. Like, it depends on your goals. Are you trying to grow your chest, or is your chest your dominant body part? If you're trying to grow your chest because your chest sucks, because your arms or your shoulders take over on pressing, then you would do a fly to pre-exhaust your chest before you get to a press. If your press is not a weak body part, if your arms or your shoulders are a weak body part, why would you ever do flies? All your chest exercises should be presses, so that you get as much volume as possible for shoulders and arms. That's assuming you're a bodybuilder and you want to have a balanced physique, rather than just, if someone's just insecure or super small and they just want to be as big as possible and they don't care if they look good or not, then I guess you would do everything possible. But to me, flies are exclusively for people who need to isolate their pecs. And the only reason to isolate your pecs is they're a weak body part relative to the other pressing body parts. Does Mast make you flat? I don't really understand how that's possible. That Masteron doesn't make you hold water the way Test or Nandrolone does. So it doesn't make you flat, but if you're replacing Test with Mast, you will hold less water, which might make you think you're flat. All Mast does is build muscle. It doesn't do anything else. Masteron is king. Yeah. Do you believe PEDs should be legal in sport? Most guys in BJA, for example, are openly on gear. I don't have an opinion about. I think that there should be no law against PEDs because it's not like the doctors know what they're doing. So having them be gatekeepers on the prescriptions is senseless. However, the common man is so much dumber than I understand. No matter how much I am disappointed, there's always more. Every day I'm disappointed more and more and more with the level of intellect of humankind. So, I mean, part of me thinks humans shouldn't be allowed to do anything, that they should just be treated like farm animals because of how dumb the dumbest people are. But then there's also smart people too that will get lumped in with the dumb people. And I think that if we just took the safety nets off society, all the dumb people would just die. So I think if you just let people do as much steroids as they want, all the dumb people would just be dead. And then only the smart people would live. So it would take care of itself. One of the best guests he's had. Who's I'm one of the best guests Niall's had. Thank you so much, man. Niall told me that was one of the best podcasts he ever did. I was like, you just say that to all the boys. And he's like, no, I'm serious, dude. Like, this was great. It's like, it's cold here too. Can't type on phone. It's like, is it so cold you can't spell? It's like, it's low dose Clen better than low dose T3 for cutting, or best to use both on low dose. So it scares me. Remember when I was talking about how people are so stupid they should just be farm animals, treated like farm animals? Clen is an asthma medication that works on beta 2 receptors. T3 is thyroid medication that is the thyroid hormone. One has nothing to do with the other. And the fact that I think I know what you're saying is like, which is better for fat loss? But you're completely oblivious to the concept that they're going to do other things your body than just lose fat. So it's so goal oriented and so blind to the consequences that you are the reason why medication should be illegal and kept out of the hands of people, is that you would even think of them in interchangeable in any way, shape, or form. It's just like, which is better, the hand or the foot? It's like, I need my feet to walk and I need my hand to slap stupid bitches into being quiet. Like, what? You can't live without both. You need to have beta 2 agonists to live. You need to have T3 to live. And the purpose of the medication is to supplement if it's low. So if you can't get through cardio, then Clen might make sense. If your T3 is low on a diet, you would replace missing T3 with more T3. You don't use T3 in super physiological doses, then that would just burn off muscle. So I guess so if someone was just dumb as a brick and I was never going to get to talk to him again, and I just had to pull a trigger and fire and make it permanent, then I would permanently put them on 40 micrograms of Clen and permanently put them on 25 micrograms of T3. But I would never do that. I would look at their blood work with T3 first, and I would serially check their blood work during the contest prep to adjust their T3 level to find out the perfect amount for them on prep. And then we would know on all subsequent preps, when you start prep, this is your HRT dose, and we should initiate this at some point, probably within 12 weeks out might be the right place. Clen, you can titrate up. As soon as the shaking stops, you can add more. One has nothing to do with the other. I follow you and Ryan Root, and y'all agree on a lot of things. Ever thought about doing a video together? He's going to come out in February and shoot with Dr. Mike Israetel, who lives like about 40 minutes from me. And then me and him are going to do a video together. Rack pull, do. Oh boy, what did Rack pull say? This is the last word of a sentence. Do. Do what? Do you need to front load the gear for 20 milligram increase every 2 weeks? That makes no sense. The whole point of increasing every 2 weeks is you're not front loading. That's the whole point. How did you miss that? All right. Do you think carb cycling has any value for non-competitors? No. Carb cycling is so that you prevent yourself from getting insulin resistance from eating a fuck ton enormous amount of carbs. If you're not a competitor, you wouldn't be eating a fuck ton enormous amount of carbs. Best things substitute for a pump. You could take my Fenris Fury pre-workout. It's got 10 grams of citrulline maleate in it. No maleate. It's just 11 grams of citrulline. I forgot about that. 5 grams of creatine. And it's got glycersize, which 4 grams of glycersize in here. This has the most amount of pump ingredients, anything on the market. It's got nitrosogene. Of course, it's got agmatine sulfate to upregulate the nitric oxide synthase enzyme. It's got sodium nitrate, so you got immediate nitric oxide effects. Got taurine to prevent cramping from clenbuterol if someone's using Clen. It's got betaine to increase the amount of IGF-1 receptors. It's the best pre-workout on the market, guaranteed. All right, let's see here. What metrics do you look at to make sure heart hypertrophy is minimized while using gear? I don't believe that gear causes heart hypertrophy. I think high blood pressure causes heart hypertrophy. And if your blood pressure is under control, you won't get heart hypertrophy. I don't recall it being mentioned in your blood work video. It's like that Ziz guy who was cutting on Clen post-surgery on methamphetamines on Clen and died of a sauna. Right. Well, that's really okay. You're saying with me, with Darwinism, that just let people use as much drugs as you want. And then if they die, who cares? It's less competition. There's less people to compete for trophies. There's less people to compete for women. That if all the dumb hot guys drop dead, then I would look hotter by default. Oh. Yeah, fuck them. If anyone's so dumb that they overdose on drugs, fuck them. And people are like, oh my God, you're a doctor. Why do you feel that way? It's like, because men are in competition with other men for resources. That's why. All right, so hi, Doc. Best starting TRT protocol. Needing to start due to pituitary adenoma, otherwise healthy and fit. Well, I don't know about for someone with a pituitary adenoma. I need to know more about that person. Assuming you have a non-functional adenoma, so your pituitary isn't working, you would replace the testosterone, you'd replace the growth hormone, and you might have to replace other hormones. But what I start people on for TRT is 20 milligrams a day of test, SIP, and 2 units of GH every day. Do you ship to Australia? Yes, although Australia might seize it. Australia is really finicky like that. Opinions on beta blockers, anxiety and high blood pressure. If you have anxiety and high blood pressure, then beta blockers might be the right drug for you. I'm not a fan of the class because it decreases the amount of cardiac output, and so it makes you a worse athlete. So it makes it harder to lose fat for people who are trying to lose fat. So if someone's naturally skinny and they have anxiety, and they have high blood pressure, then a beta blocker might be appropriate. And I'd want to go with a beta-1 specific one like Nabivolol. Is it stupid to use 20 milligrams Clen pre-fasted cardio in the off-season to leverage fat metabolism and lose fat in a surplus? You can't really lose fat in a surplus. You can liberate fat into the bloodstream, and then it just gets redeposited. So there's no point to liberating it in the first place. That if you wanted to shift the balance of energy coming from fat and not carbs, you'd use growth hormone. Growth hormones, what you're talking about, minimizing fat gain while in a surplus, would be achieved more with growth hormone than Clen. And anyway, if in this case, if you wanted to really localize it to just the cardio and not increase your metabolism the rest of the day, you'd use albuterol or albuterol inhaler. So you'd use the inhaler before cardio, not Clen, since Clen has like a 36-hour half-life. And in theory, Clen would negatively affect your sleep, which means you would grow less muscle. How long have we been on? 45 minutes? All right, we're going okay. I can handle more. Ever notice when older guys go off of roids and quit bodybuilding, they age very rapidly? Yes, I do. I've said that all the time. They say roids make you look old, but never compare guys with similar BMI. Continued. Exactly. It's stupid nonsense by stupid people. That the steroids didn't make them old. They stopped using steroids, so their growth hormone level went down, so they got old really fast. But if you had two identical twins, Dick and Harry, and Dick started steroids at 20 and Harry didn't, if you looked at them at 60 years old, Dick would be a lot younger and healthier than Harry at 60 years old, not on steroids. And they'd be like, steroids kill you. It's like, no, they don't. If you had a perfectly healthy lifestyle and you took steroids, you'd be healthier than if you didn't take them, assuming you used them the whole time and you were eating clean and healthy the whole time. So this is continued. Take two guys at 25 or 30 BMI, both over 40. Compare the natty guy to the guy on test and GH. The roided guy will blow him away in everything. I 100% agree. Thank you, B, for being so much smarter than the rest of the human race. You, sir, are no farm animal. All right, Daniel, when my gains stop at 300 tests, 500 mass, and I up the dose, I see no result. Only if I increase the food. That means I only need that much gear and only push the food. In your case, in that situation, yes. My doc says as you get older, you need more and more test, tapering to your T-test as years go by. I don't see the reason for that. And he's talking about really low baby doses anyway, probably. Homemate, I know estradiol is a paracrine hormone, so blood levels are not 100% accurate for tissue levels. That is true. Okay. But I want to know, would tracking estradiol with Nandrolone backfill enough of the pathways? I don't really understand what you're trying to say, man. It says gaming in French, so your English is better than my French, but your English isn't good enough for me to understand what you're talking about because you're talking about some outside the box creative thinking in regards to biochemistry and pharmacology. I'm going to guess at what you're trying to say. That you know that estradiol concentration in the blood isn't 100% indicative of in the tissue. But you want to know, would taking estradiol with Nandrolone enough to get IGF-1 conversion? According to Austin Oral, Parabolic, he did use estrogen, I think laureate, and estrogen valerate, and he was able to get IGF-1 synthesis from Nandrolone. So he ran a Nandrolone-only cycle with estrogen rather than testosterone and got great results. So if that's what you're trying to ask, then the answer is yes. All right. If doing 40 milligrams of test per day, 80 milligrams Masteron per day, I love this guy. He actually told me what his daily dose was, not some weekly bullshit. What would you say is an optimal GH dose? I don't think the GH has anything to do with your dosage like Steve does. Steve has his ratio. I don't agree with that. I think you just take as much GH as you can handle and afford without having problems. So in most men, that's 6 to 8 units of GH. Anything more than that, you're not getting IGF-1 conversion anymore. It's just a waste of money. Can you just keep ramping up the more fat loss and muscle growth? That's a good point. So for anabolic purposes, IGF-1 is the anabolic. The way the GH achieves anabolism, the way the GH causes anabolic growth is through IGF-1. That will hit a limit of about 6 to 8 IU. Now, to go higher in your IGF-1, your estrogen can drive it up higher, your insulin can drive it up higher, but using more GH than 6 or 8 units is not going to generate more IGF-1 in most people. Maybe some people it can, but I've never seen it. Now, for purposes of metabolic effects of GH, where in regards to fat and insulin sensitivity and stuff like that, in theory, as you ramp up on the GH, you get a double-edged sword where you will get more partitioning of nutrients towards using fat for fuel and saving carbs. However, people, scientists, I've never seen this. None of them have been credible. They're just armchair scientists who don't look like they lift say that the GH causes insulin resistance. I've never seen the insulin resistance from GH. I've seen off-season insulin resistance in people who use GH, but I think that there's no correlation between the GH use and the insulin resistance, because I've done it. I've went from 26 units all the way down to 6 units and saw no improvement in my insulin sensitivity. So I've done the opposite. So and then that's just me, but I think the reason why people are insulin resistant in the off season is from the amount of carbs they're pushing. And if you do carb cycling every other day, you're doing carbs, then you'll get less insulin resistance, especially if you have to use insulin to drive home those carbs on the every other day format. All right, Andre, should calories increase based on increased lean body mass? Paul Barnett said that BMR should be calculated. So in theory, 1 pound of muscle. I don't think those formulas matter. That in general, you would do your body weight times 12 if you're trying to lose weight. This is just a starting point. This is like, I've never tried. I have no idea what I'm doing. Give me a vague idea. It's like, if you're 200 pounds, eat 3,000 calories. That's what I say. It's 15 times your body weight. If you're 200 pounds, eat 3,000 calories. If you're gaining weight, then you're in a surplus. If you're losing weight, you're in a deficit. We don't want to be able to detect it. You should need to have to use a spreadsheet to see weight going up. Otherwise, if you can visibly detect that you're gaining weight, you're gaining way too much fat. Muscle grows so slow that you gain like 1 pound of muscle a month max. It's really more like 1 pound every 3 months. In someone like me at my age and my size, it's going to be 1 pound of muscle a year. So there's no point to trying to grow by overeating or using drugs. It's just nonsense. You're not going to grow any faster. All right. Now, that doesn't mean Paul's not smart. It doesn't mean I don't like Paul. It just means that I used to use that too. If someone paid me to write their diet and they had no calories, and I'm like, okay, they want to lose weight, we're going to start them at lean body mass times 12 calories. Fine. They will lose fat that fast. Sure. That is a correct statement. So as a coach who deals with hundreds of people, this would be a good formula to start. Now, increasing calories, like I said, is if you're trying to grow, you don't really need to even try. All you need to make sure is that the logbook is improving. And not by just a little bit, like I got a new exercise and for 4 weeks, I was ramping, plateau. No. 6 months, 8 months, you're still progressing in most of your lifts and you're not getting sore. You're not getting fucked up joints. You're just cruising and you're just slowly getting stronger over 6 to 8 months. That's building muscle. You don't need more gear. You don't need more food. I literally asked because Steve says that. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know why Steve came up with that number. It doesn't mean I don't think Steve's smart. I think Steve is smart. It might have been a way to get people to like stay grounded and not overdose on one drug and underdose on the other, so that they at least tethered the two together. So that I think he said it was like every 250 tests is 1 unit of GH. So it means that if you're using 4 units of GH, you should be using 1,000 tests. If you're using 8 units of GH, you should be using 2,000 tests. If you're using 12 units of GH, and you see how it starts getting silly with those high numbers, but nobody's dealing with those numbers. So with my opinion is everybody should be on 2 units of GH for the most part. There's a few exceptions, but for the most part, 2 units of GH, 4 units is a grow protocol. So I would agree that 500 total anabolic load would correspond to 4 units of GH. That sounds reasonable. I would agree that about 750 to 1,000 corresponds to like 6 or 8 units of GH. I would agree to that. I would even agree that by the time you're at 2,000 total anabolic load, you're at about 10 units of GH. Sure. But I don't know that anybody needs more than if Nick Walker doesn't need more than 2,000 milligrams of gear and doesn't need more than 10 IU a GH, then why do you? If Ronnie Coleman doesn't, if Jay Cutler doesn't, if all these guys, everybody in the IFBB uses between 1.5 and 2.5 grams of gear and between 8 and 10 units of GH, it's pretty silly. Like, have I tried more? Yes, because Chase had convinced me that the reason I wasn't growing is I wasn't using enough. So I tried to do what he did, and it didn't work for me. I didn't grow any faster. So that doesn't mean he's wrong for him. What he did worked for him, but nobody else really gets results like that. I mean, John Jewett gets really good results, and me and him do pretty similar things. I've even used doses similar to him before and saw good results. How long does it take the stomach to become accustomed to high food volume? It doesn't. You don't use high food volume. You pick more calorie dense food. You switch to jasmine rice. You switch to cream of rice. You have 1 or 2 shakes a day of something. I use beef protein isolate. I find that digests better. And I only drink that with food, whole food meals. So you're fortifying the meal with more protein. You're not drinking it by itself, so it just rushes through you and into your colon and gets digested by bacteria. B, probably not comparable, but we've all seen how gigafast women age when they hit menopause and their natty hormone levels tank. That's a great point. Yeah, that women, and I don't think it's just, I think it's, in my opinion, women drink and smoke and go to bars and they go tanning. And I had a girlfriend that say, when women do something, they do it to excess. That if women are into cheating, they cheat a lot. If women drink, they drink until they're drunk. If they do drugs, they just do all the drugs. Men seem to have a threshold where they're like, I'm losing control of myself. I'm going to stop here. But most women just go overboard with everything. So I think because of that, women are so toxic with their food that they eat. Like, they pig out on junk food. They drink alcohol. They smoke. They do all these horrible things for their bodies, and they do a shitload of it. So they just age way faster than men do. That's why a woman at 35 looks like a man does at like 50. Before puberty, before menopause, they went to shit. And that's usually why. And I have this girl I know that looks really, really young. And she told me, she's like, you told me when I was 19 that as long as I don't drink and I don't smoke and I don't tan, I'll be young and beautiful forever. So I listened. And she's like 29 and she looks really fucking young for 29. She could pass for 20, no problem. So it's a low anecdote, but it's like other girls I've dated have said the same thing. They're like, yeah, like 5-10 years later, they're like, I listened to you. I didn't do the things you told me not to do. And you're right. I look a lot younger than my friends who I've watched pig out on, alcohol, drugs, whatever. And they all look way older than me. All right. Favorite firearm, either as a carry or for the range. All right. You're not going to like my answer. So the way I look at it is when they test a bullet to see, did the bullet that they pulled out of the body correspond to the supposed murder weapon? The rifling and the pattern, they can link it to that make and model of gun, but not your specific gun as clearly. So therefore, the most common gun in America is a Glock 17. So therefore, and it's really big. So in your hand, it fits better than like a Glock 19, which is really small. So the bigger the gun, the less kick, because the force has to distribute through a bigger gun. So using a ubiquitous round, like a 9mm in a large gun, it's going to be way harder to convict you of murder than if you use something weird like a Desert Eagle. Like, there's not that many Desert Eagles. Or you use a really strange caliber like a Japanese 8mm round. It's like, there's not a whole lot of 8mm floating around Michigan. So you're pretty much fucked if they pull an 8mm out of somebody's body and you happen to own it and they find an 8mm on your person. But if you've got a Glock and there's a 9mm in the body, fat chance they're going to tie it to you. You'll confess because you don't know better. But if you're follow the Todd Lee school of I never confess to shit, no matter what, then you can get away with a lot more. So I always would use the most ubiquitous firearm round. Like if I was in Afghanistan, I would use an AK because I don't want to be labeled They're not going to trace that AK round back to me. Half the people in the fucking country have AKs. In Detroit, everybody's got AKs and everyone's got 9mm. So as long as you're using AK and 9mm rounds, they can't prove it was you. All right. Is that calculation of calories taking into consideration the gear increasing your metabolism? Again, dude, this isn't biohacking is bullshit. Real science is not that. This is not a computer programming class. You just fucking eat the food and you weigh yourself and you look, am I getting fat? And if you're getting fat, you decrease the food you're eating. All the rest of the bullshit formulas are bullshit. None of that matters. Everybody's so different. And plus, most people's record keeping shit, data collection shit, data analysis is shit. People just aren't smart enough to do it that way. There are people who are, but my experience is the engineers and the computer science people are the ones who fail the hardest because they don't account for the fact that this is not a fucking computer program. This isn't the Matrix. You can't just plug shit into a formula and get out an answer. In real life, real medicine isn't the reason why they call it that. What's the proper term? I practice the art of medicine. Is even though it's made up of a field of sciences, medicine is an art. And so what none of you guys, I know none of you consider yourselves doctors, but you're playing doctor by prescribing yourself medicine. So without this fundamental core concepts that you will never be smart enough to understand the human body, enough to predict what it's going to do when you put something into it, what you do is you put some stuff into it and you observe and report. And after you collect data, you analyze the data and then make adjustments to your dosing strategy. That's it. Real science, not the religion of science that you guys think is science. Whereas you watch YouTube and you have someone with a bald head tell you that Masteron does this and Masteron does that. And they only have for evidence the teachings of the other bald priests. So it's this consortium of bald priests that all tell you the same thing. Masteron causes hair loss, even though I didn't use it. And that's not how I lost my hair. I lost my hair using testosterone. I'm preaching to you that Masteron causes hair loss and doesn't grow muscle. But that's not what the evidence indicates. When you actually experiment on yourself, or if you have a plethora of patients or clients and they're all doing the same thing and they all get the same results and it's different than what the bald priests say, then the bald priests and their religion of science isn't real science. Real science is taking the medicine, treating the problem, collecting data, analyzing the data, and then revisiting your treatment plan and deciding, should we adjust the treatment plan based on the results? That's it. About 12 calories per pound of muscle is right. My puppy, Fozzie, German Shepherd, loves this show. That's adorable. Does he have a bow tie? Your views on Chase Iron's insane test cycles and saying that test is best. I've already talked about that. And if you want to know what I think about test is best, I have a video about test only cycle. I mean, the simple answer is test causes the most amount of water retention. And that's why guys think that you're gaining more muscle as you're stronger from the water retention and the DHT. And so people think they gain more muscle and you're holding more water. So you look bigger, but test is not best. John Jewett did this himself. He went from 1,000 test and 2,000 Mast to 1,400 test, 840 Primo and 700 Mast. He said despite the rumor that Primo and test are better at growing the Mast, because it's the same total amount. He just shifted the balance from 2,000 Masteron to 700 Masteron and filled in the rest with the popular drugs. He said, I did not see any improvement in strength, size, rate of growth, nothing. Do you think older bodybuilders that are still jacked like Jay Cutler are still using more TRT levels of gear? No. I think they're using the appropriate amount of TRT to meet their body's needs to get the amount of testosterone that they want. Titrating up. See, this is, again, this biohacker fallacy where you think you know what you're talking about. TRT levels is not what you put into your body. TRT levels is when your body has the amount of testosterone that it's supposed to have. So in you, 20 milligrams might be TRT. In me, 70 milligrams a test could be TRT. Titrating from 30 milligrams to 40 milligrams test daily. Is it safe to front load 100 milligram injections for 3 days to get the levels up faster? I mean, I don't think it's ever smart to front load with test, because test converts over to DHT and estrogen. So you're going to get massive side effects if you try to front load test. Front loading is for other drugs that are safer, like Masteron. How can you only use up to 2.5 grams of gear and still grow for years? I don't really see Nick Walker getting bigger. It seems like he just maintains the dose. I don't understand the question. You grow from lifting weights, and the gear still works. I mean, I guess that there is a theory that eventually you get to a point where you've maximized your ability to grow off of that much gear. And I see your point, but what years is ambiguous. You might be saying 10 or 20 years, but years could be 2 or 3 years. So the way you ask the question, I don't have the ability to answer it. And thoughts on Lee Priest saying went over 750 tests a week. I don't know. I've never heard of Lee Priest using that much gear. Did you see him at 16? Fucker doesn't need gear. Also, that question I asked about blood glucose being above fasted was pertaining to the massive carb meal pre-training. Would I need insulin to bring? No, the workout should bring your blood glucose back down, because you're using that. The reason why you're eating a bunch of carbs before you train is so your blood has glucose to train on. Yeah, I don't think you know enough about medicine to use insulin, man. Just take insulin out of your life. Unless you have diabetes, don't use insulin. All right. Is ipamorelin beneficial with TRT? That shit's garbage. Just use growth hormone. How many milligrams of testosterone would you consider ideal per week? It depends on the person. I start people at 20 milligrams per day. It's stupid to think of any drug by the week. 20 milligrams per day is the proper place to start. I love the answer to the gun question. It's like, it's the way no one thinks of it that way. It's like, I want the gun that's going to minimize my chances of going to prison. That's what I want. Never talk to cops, hire a lawyer always. Yeah. Bro has wisdom in many realms. Thank you. Calorie deficit equals weight loss, but how to make sure it's fat and not muscle? That you keep your deficit to 500 or less. That a lot of that deficit comes from cardio, not just starvation. That you have appropriate amount of protein, carbs, and fat with each meal. That appropriate is the hard part, because it depends on you and your goals and your physiology. And you have appropriate levels of your hormones. If that means you need TRT and HRT in the form of growth hormone, then so be it. Also, other drugs might be helpful to leverage that, like clenbuterol, and making sure that your T3 levels don't drop by using hormone replacement doses of T3, but not excessive amounts of T3, which will cause you to shrivel up and lose muscle, which is why people hire a coach. And I personally think I'm a good coach to hire, since I'm the only doctor coach. All right, 500 milligrams test versus 250 test, 250 Masteron. I think 100% of people will get better results from 250 test, 250 Masteron. Except, like, I know this is going to sound strange. Me personally, I would need the 500 test, because I wouldn't make enough estrogen out of 250 test or enough DHT. So me personally, I would be that asshole using the 500 test for HRT. But some people would have, if they go over 200 test, they have extremely high estrogen. So it depends on the person. But almost everybody, it's this group here. Very few people are going to be this group, but I happen to be one of those people. And also your body fat. Like, if I was 20 or 30% body fat, I'd be over here. But if I'm 10 to 12% body fat, I'm going to be over here. How much Dbol would you need to take to become an IFBB pro? No pros take Dianabol. Dianabol's a drug for dumb bitches. All right, Carlos Mata. Is there instant gains from GH? No. Yeah, it's extremely slow. The people like Kurt who say that they gain 2 pounds a day from using growth hormone, that's just water, which is scary because he wrote a book about GH. You'd think you'd know better. I'm thinking about starting injections next year, but for now I want to try an oral. No, don't be if you no, 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 no. If you're scared of needles, don't use steroids. But whatever you do, don't start with Dbol. Chase had his titties cut out and thus can handle a lot of tests. It's safe to say most people would rather not go through that. That's a very good point. But for doses that Chase uses, like 5,000, you will grow a third titty. Like there's no explanation how that guy's still alive. Considering interindividuality, if someone has 0 sides from a high dose of test, would you ever advise against it in place of lower test? No. I think if you can get, and that's what I was basically, this question you wrote before I answered it before. But if I need 1,000 tests just to get my DHT and estradiol where I want them, then that's my base. That base and HRT is relative to the person. But I think that you run a test base to get the estrogen you want. For me, I get a lot more out of an estrogen of 100 than I would out of 50. But if I don't even get a 50 estrogen from using 700 tests a week, which would be 100 per day. So it's just, I have to run way more tests than I advise people to do because in most cases, the people I see out there, they're using too much test and they're getting all types of problems from how much test they're using. Present. Dude, no one asked for you. You ain't potent. Look what happened. I'm just kidding. I love you, man. It's like, look what happened to Big Paul and his titty surgeries. Not worth the risk of high. Yeah, Paul had bad luck with multiple gyno surgeries. Error. What would powerlifter base in his cycle on if he's a weight class? I don't know. He should hire me and find out. Boom. All right. How long can you keep growing on the same dose from personal experience? 5 to 10 years. Yeah. So I grew for about 5 to 10 years off of 1,500. Then when I shot up to 2,000, I saw great progress. Then I started trying more like 2,800, 3,000, 4,200, and 4,200 didn't grow me any faster than 2,000. So I think but I know I can get away with 3,500, which means that I could grow on 2,000 for another 5 or 10 years, then go 2,500 and grow for a couple of years, then go 3,000. And then, so if you need it to grow, your body can handle it. If you're getting side effects, you're using more than you need because your body can't handle it. It's one of these basic empirical truths that is part of becoming a doctor, like the wisdom of going through school that nobody does. They just start blasting steroids and they look at life like it's a computer program that if I add 200 milligrams, I get 4,000 in the blood. So that means obviously if I add 400 milligrams, I get 8,000 in the blood. And that's just not how it works. It's not a formula that works like that. How long can you keep growing on the same dose from personal experience? I think I just answered this, right? Yeah, I did. All right. What are your opinions on GLP-1 agonists for overweight and obese adults? That it's a shortcut for lazy people with no self-control. All you have to do is just eat clean, healthy food, and you wouldn't get fat in the first place. I have a lot of family members wanting to use them without having any idea what they do. They basically make you shit blood, and most of these people are going to be dead or dying in the next 5 or 10 years. All right. If in a 500 calorie deficit, is 1.1 to 1.3 grams of protein per pound of body weight optimal? No, I don't think that's enough protein. I know that's what Milo Wolf says, but I don't know what kind of natty twinks that they're running this bullshit on. I would stay at 1.5 grams. Even like Snitch and me talked about in our last episode, and she's like, even though the science says 1 gram, I still eat 2 because I don't trust the science. It's like I don't trust it either. It just doesn't make any sense that more protein isn't better. All right, what is your process of designing a TRT protocol for a cycle for a new client? What kind of things you look at to capture their individual response to the drug? So what it's not as, I have to put them on something. First of all, I have to look at their blood work and what they've already been doing. Then that gives me an idea of what I can do going forward. In general, most of them have fucked up their bodies so badly. I have to take everything away and I leave in 20 milligrams of test and 2 units of GH. And then after 4 weeks of them eating right and training right, their blood work looks much better. Their training's better. They feel better and they look better than they've ever looked before. I don't add more drugs. Then over months and months and months, they continue to make progress in training, that they get stronger, they get bigger, they get leaner, they look better, and they get healthier. And I don't add more drugs. And then they're like, when are we going to add more drugs? I'm like, when do you want to be less healthy? When do you want to make less progress? When do you want to die faster? They're like, I don't. I'm like, well, then why would we go back to doing it your way? Since your way didn't work. And these are like the basic common sense things no one gets, is that if you're unhealthy, you will not grow. You will not look good. You need to be healthy. So use the minimum amount of drugs to grow. And if I add in more drugs, I usually add in testosterone, and then I track their estrogen. And we keep adding testosterone and growth hormone to try to drive their IGF-1 up as much as possible. And then eventually they're going to have sensitive nipples. So then I have to roll back on the testosterone, clear up the gyno with maybe some Primo. And then after the Primo's all gone, I'll leave their testosterone where I rolled it back to at their last safe dosage. Like, let's say at 40 milligrams of test, they were fine. When we went to 50 milligrams of test after 3 weeks, they got gyno. I roll them back to 40 milligrams of test and add in 40 milligrams of Primo along with some Tamoxifen, wipe out the gyno in 4 weeks, then pull back the Tamoxifen, wait another 4 weeks, replace the Primo with Masteron, but leave the test alone at 40. And that's pretty much where I start moving up from there. All right. I am convinced to watch Nosferatu, but just waiting for that dark evening, maybe a little bud and see what happens. Thank you for the review. I agreed with you about the comedy review, so I trust you. All right, cool. I'm glad. Boom, boom. Would you ever homebrew Mast Raws to save money? You know, that would be a 20-year felony. So I am not going to, what's the proper term? Confess. I'm not going to confess to a 20-year felony. Let's see. People are asking about oral only cycles in 2025. Yeah. Well, some people are cowards and pussies and they don't want to use needles. All right. Doing blood work tomorrow morning. We'll drink 1 gallon of water before. Can I also drink electrolytes before, such as sodium, potassium, and magnesium? You can. I mean, but like, do you know exactly what the proper blend is? You know, like, are you going to, you could just drink Pedialyte, but then the sugar would fuck you up. So I don't know. It sounds like it's just a lot more work. I don't think I would never bother looking at someone's electrolytes in their labs anyway. All right, hit the like so Dr. Todd does more lives during normal US times. That's a good point. Positive reinforcement goes a long way. And I do have to say, no one's giving me shit tonight and nobody's pissing me off. Like right now, we only have 1 on the Masteron counter and 1 on the, what do you call it, sublingual versus IM counter. So I'm way not irritated. There's only been 2 shots. All right, Doc, can you adjust the camera lower? You're cut off. All right. There. What are some side effects that you should get if you are taking too much steroids than you actually need? What are some side effects you would get if you were taking too much steroids? High blood pressure, aggression, anxiety, sleep disturbance, erectile dysfunction, low or super high sex drive. And then here's the big ones, the ones that actually matter: hair loss, gyno. And people are like, why are you more concerned with the surface than the insides? It's the person on the inside that matters. It's because the stuff on the inside is reversible. Whereas if you lose your hair or get gyno, it's permanent. So as a bodybuilder, you don't want to take the drugs to help you win shows and then disfigure yourself, guaranteeing you lose the shows. Then it's completely pointless. So the point is to use enough drugs to grow the muscle, but not so much drugs that you lose hair or get gyno or blood pressure or all the other issues. That because I'm me, I can fix anything on the inside, easy as shit. But stuff on the outside, I have to hire a surgeon to fix it, which means I'm not in complete control, which makes me feel like less of a man. So I don't want to get emasculated by having to say, I fucked up, I need help. I'd rather just do it right. Or if I'm going to do it wrong, I do it wrong in a very small way so I can fix it and then not tell anybody about it. All right. Should I brush until my gums bleed slightly and then take my Anavar? If it's sublingual, yeah, chew it up and then coat your gums with it after you brush. Does it help if I spread the powder over the gums, or should I just keep it under my tongue? In theory, if you're not going to brush your teeth, just stick it under your tongue. But if you are going to brush your teeth, moving it around on your gums where you've got the micro tears. And by the way, dude, I'm just giving you shit, calling you pussy. I don't know you. You're probably not a pussy. Lots of people are afraid of needles. They're called girls. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry, man. I couldn't help it. It's just so easy. All right, Andre, what will 100 milligrams of Tren make you grow more than 100 milligrams of Test? Not talking about the sides. I already know. With super low doses like that, I'm going to say yes. That they showed that with low doses, the potency really matters. Once you go to higher doses, the potency doesn't matter so much. So would 14 milligrams of Tren a day be more anabolic than 14 milligrams of Test a day? Yes. Would I need estrogen control for 100 milligrams of Deca with my added to my 200 milligrams? So again, with the idiot talk, I think what you're trying to say is 14 milligrams a day of Deca with your 26 or 27 milligrams a day of Test. Just use real numbers, guys. Just fucking count it in by the day. So you wouldn't do this. This is stupid. You would go 20 milligrams a day of Test or 30 milligrams a day of Test and either 10 or 15 milligrams of Deca. The answer, probably not. You'd probably be okay because your estrogen wouldn't be very high with that little testosterone. So it doesn't matter how much Deca you use. All right. What are your thoughts of EQ being nephrotoxic? There's no evidence that it's significant. Okay, all the drugs are nephrotoxic. EQ is just more. So if you use EQ and your cystatin C goes up a lot, then don't keep using it. If it doesn't go up a lot, if it goes from like 0.8 to 0.9, then don't worry about it. Can you microdose Tren SubQ? You can, but you should microdose it intramuscular because you're not a moron. I've been doing it Tren SubQ for 10, 20 milligrams a day, and I'm feeling great. Yeah, but you should be doing it intramuscular, not SubQ. SubQ is dumb. All right. At what dose is too much for Masteron? There is no maximum dose of Masteron. Masteron is the drug that your body just tolerates it no matter how much you take because it's tempting to increase it, and as there are almost no sides. Yep. I ran as much as 450 a day, didn't even notice. Thoughts on raw milk given the intact lactase enzyme that would be destroyed during pasteurization is present in raw milk, giving people the ability to absorb it better. Saw your friend Scientific. If she says so, I haven't tried it. You know, I take digestive enzymes with every meal anyway. I found that when I take digestive enzymes with ice cream, I don't get sick. All right. Suck smoothie. Does it make sense to incorporate albuterol of ephedrine in off-season cardio in order to make the cardio more effective? No, I don't. I could see the albuterol, but definitely not ephedrine. Yeah, you don't want an increased heart rate. The higher your heart rate, the more muscle you're going to burn. It's the opposite of what you want. Snitch hating on the raw milk, wanted to see your opinion on it. I always just, if it's something I don't know, I'm going to listen to Snitch. And if it's something I do know and she has a difference of opinion, I'll ask her about it and see I'll say, is it true in this patient population? She'll say, I don't know. And I'm like, okay, so my data set is different from your data set because the patient population I'm talking about is different from the patient population you're talking about. All right. They think there is any truth to the high protein damaging kidneys? No, not at all. I don't even think it is with people with CKD. I think that they just don't know how to read blood work. And so they associate creatinine with EGFR, and they assume the EGFR is lower in high protein intake because they're too stupid to realize that when you eat meat, your creatinine is going to go up because there's creatine in the meat. On 40 milligrams Tamoxifen a day, never had kidney problems. What sodium intake daily is optimum? I don't know, probably about 10 grams if you sweat a lot. That Doc, can EQ really ran at weekly low dose, injecting every day, similar to Tren? I don't understand what this is saying. I use 30 milligrams of EQ a day, if that helps answer your question. All right. How much HGH would be equivalent to 50 milligrams of Dbol? None. They're not. What? It's how many dudes are equivalent to a girl. Like, it's like, if I fuck 100 dudes, how many girls did I just fuck? 0. They're not the same thing. It's like, what is wrong with you? Oh, okay. I'm supposed to be patient. On my bad. All right. So no amount of Dbol will ever be equivalent to any amount of GH. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, how much ass sweat do you have to drink to get the equivalent of 8 milliliters of Kool-Aid? None. Ass sweat will never be Kool-Aid. All right. Random muscle cramping. What are your thoughts on taurine dose daily? 3 to 5 milligrams. Using Clen at... Yeah, you just add in taurine, 3 to 5 milligrams. That's why I mean 3 to 5 grams. That's why I put 3 grams. Did I put 3 grams? I put 3 grams in my pre-workout. Is on the off chance people are using Clen. Imagine if people ask diet questions like they ask drug questions. I know, right? Is 2,000 grams of protein per week good for muscle growth? Yeah, exactly. It's so funny how ass backwards that they get all this shit, that they think steroids are so fucking important. Is sodium deasparated also good for fertility? Yes, absolutely. That's why I made this product. I made Thor's hammer so that people who are normally infertile can get their wives pregnant. And I think that, to my knowledge, there's at least 5 or 6 Thor babies. So at least 5 or 6 guys were infertile and their universities couldn't help them, like university hospitals, like University of Michigan, couldn't help them get pregnant. I had them use this and they got their girlfriends or wives pregnant. And my protocol for if they want to start natural production is to use this. That's why I made it. And I know they're like, well, what if they don't trust you? Like in that case, they could use HCG 250 micrograms a day and use, I think it's 70 micrograms of FSH every other day. Yes, I said every other day because it's pulsatile. It needs to hit at least 70 to do anything. You could use it 70 every day, but you can't do 35 every day. So it's 70 every other day. I'm on 100 milligrams of test 5 days a week. Okay, weird. And 100 milligrams of Mast 5 days a week. Why 5 days a week? Why not every day? Well, adding 10 to 20 milligrams of Tren ACE a day help me build more muscle. Probably not. You just won't eat and sleep, so you'll grow less muscle. All right. Can you lower the dose and still grow if you happen to up the dose too fast and start getting sides? Yes. No, you're not stuck at that dose. So if your body needs 1,500 to grow and you take 1,500 and you're growing, then you take 2,000 and you're growing, and you take 2,500 and you're growing, and you take 3,000, you beat up your girlfriend, then you, oh shit, you just like flee the country and you go to like Afghanistan or somewhere with non-extradition treaties, you can milk out 1,500 milligrams and keep growing. All right. What are your thoughts on super green powders? I think that if they work, they'd be great, but I don't know of any that work. And here's the best reason why you shouldn't trust them. None of them have the same ingredients. You'd think that if there was some rhyme or reason to the formulations, that there'd be some type of consistency, but there's not. And also the price points are all over the place. Like Athletic Greens, it's like $100 a month. And then there's other things that are like $6 a month. Just, I know that this sounds strange. I just eat peas and carrots with my chicken and rice, and it's great. It helps. Also, the green powders aren't going to help you have good digestion. High dose Masteron versus moderate dose Masteron, but combined with some Primo. Who are you showing off for? Like, what's the question? It's like, how irritating can I be? is there's no advantage to using Primo unless you have to control the estrogen. The only reason we control estrogen is if you are abusing testosterone. So here we go. Everyone gets to do a shot because another fucking and irritating Masteron versus Primo question. All right. Which anabolic is the best shortcut to get a pro physique as quick as possible? There is no shortcuts. You are not the right person. If you're afraid of needles, you are never going to get a pro physique. If you're trying to use Dbol to avoid using growth hormone, you are never going to amount to anything. You need to just grow the fuck up and do it right. Grow the fuck up and do it right. Grow the fuck up and do it right. All right. It looks like a productive stream. It was a productive stream. Then we got these two in a row. It's like, how can I spend more money rather than using the perfect drug Masteron? How much of this expensive Gucci Primo shit can I add to it to then look like I'm some type of boss? And then this one is, I don't want to do any of the work. I just want the rewards. Yeah. I think that pretty much killed the vibe of this podcast. Should I avoid GDAs? No. Close to workout times because of the anti-inflammatory properties. No, Snitch pretty much disputed that the point is the AMPK pathway is going to already be activated from your training. So any additional activation of AMPK from post-workout cardio or berberine is irrelevant. Robert D. Been taking full advantage of Test plus GH for months, getting amazing results. Recently added Mast D, and goddamn it, I'm morphing. No sides and bloods look great. This is the Holy Trinity. Thanks, Doc. I want to point out that Robert got roasted so hard. Just like I just roasted Denizen and I roasted Emmanuel Velasco, I used to roast Josh Robert so hard, and he stuck it out. He's like, I fucking hate this asshole, but I'm going to listen to him anyway. And now he's saying that I was right. And it's like, I feel bad for roasting him because I keep thinking if I don't roast people, maybe that they will stick around and become like Robert. So I'm not taking it as confirmation bias that, oh, the trick to making a Robert out of an ignorant person is to verbally abuse them. No, I realize that is the wrong thing to do. It's just that this shit's live, so there's no buffer for me to like reel it in. Dbol to GH is insane. Okay, so I'm crazed. Oh man, so I'm not the only one who thought that was the most ludicrous assumption ever. I've been running 1 gram of Masteron, 100 milligrams of Tren, and 800 milligrams of Tren, and 100 milligrams of Dbol a day for 12 weeks now. Do you think I can push it to week 40 or just? Oh, okay. All right. I was like, be nice to this guy. Be nice to this guy. He's trolling me. Okay. All right. Not a real question. I know. You're trolling me. All right. Doc, can you elaborate more on your 30 milligrams of EQ? Oh, God. See, I really wish I didn't say that because anytime I say stuff, then people throw it in my face for years. I anticipated that increasing my test was going to cause my estrogen to go sky high. So I put in a little bit of EQ to control it. And the results were that I almost doubled my test. And instead of it going from 35 to like 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, like I wanted, it went down to 25. So it was gross overkill that a little bit of EQ goes a very long way. So, yeah. Doc, did you look up at Space Marine surgeries yet? No, I have not. All right. Only 20 likes, guys. There are 50 in here. Just hit like. All right. What would you add to a stack for optimum mood boost? Oh my God. Are you trolling me? I don't agree. Okay. I don't believe that people should use drugs to control their mood. I think that using drugs to control your mood is wrong. It's drug addiction. That people who use weed, heroin, cocaine, alcohol, I look down on all those people. Now, I understand that people might use weed for another reason, like they want to stay mellow, or it helps them focus and work, or they've got some type of pain that they want to deal with. But the idea of getting high just to get high is antithetical to my worldview. So I don't believe you should add drugs for moods enhancements. Oh man, we got to give Denizen a timeout. There's just too many aggravating questions. Do you get people like that a lot? Yes. So for those of you who don't know, the reason why I hate the world and I want to burn it to ash is because of the amount of people like Denizen that come at me all day, every day. Is that thing with 1,500 milligrams going to maximize the gains? Or are you talking about the minimum effective dose to get some gains? There is no such thing as maximizing gains. Any gains is maximized gains. You don't grow muscle fast, you grow muscle slow. Advantage using Primo is that you want to be bald. Come on, guys. Yeah. It's not that simple, but I just see Primo as inferior version of Masteron. The only time to employ it is if you're trying to control your estrogen. And the only reason we need to control your estrogen is because you're abusing testosterone. So the correct thing is not to add Primo. The correct thing is to lower your testosterone. Curious, do you work with active duty military personnel? Yes. Specifically special operations? Yes. Have you heard of PEDs are common and very helpful in the community? Yes. At 125 milligram test with 350 to 500 Deca and 400 Mast, do you think estrogen prolactin will still be an issue? Yes. I don't know for sure, actually. I've never seen anyone do it this way. All right, is Psionic. You are a super good sport. We appreciate your honesty. In all seriousness, it's what makes us safer. So seriously, thank you. All right, thanks, buddy. So I think what he's saying is you have my permission to flame people that are out of line because it keeps everyone else in line. All right. Do you still recommend people gain 0.5 pound a week during a growth phase on PEDs? At most a half a pound a week. So at most 2 pounds a month. Murinova. Does weed actually increase prolactin levels? I don't know that it does, but I don't know that it doesn't. But what I do know is that people who smoke weed tend to have low sex drives and bitch tits. So the way I understand it is weed causes something similar to SHBG to be released, and so it mops up free testosterone. So when I was in college, they used to believe that weed caused estrogen to increase. That's not true. It doesn't cause estrogen to increase. It causes testosterone to decrease, which means relative estrogen increase because it's the free testosterone that gets mopped up. All right, guys, we've been on for a little bit over 90 minutes. I also shot a video about deloading before I did this. Hopefully you guys had a good time. I did too up until near the very end. And I appreciate you giving me permission to be a dick, Psionic. And I appreciate you validating that that person was way out of line. Crazed. It makes me feel a little bit better about my social flaws. All right, let's see here. One more before I go. Yep, you were right about that weed. Totally test lower and more so progesterone goes way up. All right, you have a good day, Doc. All right, guys. May the force be with you.